What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Monday, everybody. Last day of June, and I thought that Senator Rounds was going to be on Ross Coulthart's reality check until Wednesday because the show usually airs on Wednesdays. But no, as it turns out, they recorded the interview, and somebody released it without realizing that it released publicly. Some people clipped a few parts of it. I'm going to play you first the clip that got leaked first that has to do with the reason why Senator Rounds and Senator Schumer used non-human intelligence 24 times in the legislation from 2023. Rounds' response for many was a bit underwhelming, mainly because he wanted to make sure that people realized that they did not have a smoking gun and that they were doing this just because they wanted for people to know that they were not hiding or trying to hide anything. But it is real that he was part of the people that were briefed by all of these firsthand people that David Grush brought forward to the Armed Services Committee. That is real. And I guess that is the reason why many of these senators and even Inspector General Thomas Monheim said that David Grush's claims were credible and urgent. That's the reason why this amendment was created in the first place. But there are many issues that I think we need to cover. Let's play the clip first, the one that went viral first, and then we'll play a couple more that I think are worth looking at. So here is the first clip, the one that leaked.
Intelligence, NHI. 24 times. It's a very bold statement, isn't it, by the Senate and by the Congress of intention. You seem to be suggesting there that there is a there to be found.
You know, our intent was to make sure that there wasn't an assumption by folks who were following it that we were trying to hide anything. And our goal was to say, look, if there is any of this, which, you know, a lot of folks out there have questioned whether or not after all these years there was contact that we had with entities, intelligence that was not of this earth and so forth. We just thought rather than beating around the bush, let's just say, look, if there's any of that out there, then let's disclose it. Let's make that available or at least collect it. And then
I just want you guys to pause a little bit and realize that a sitting senator is saying these things on News Nation right now. And I think that he's very serious. I was talking to Dan Cleary from Others from Another Mother podcast. He was there at the hearings back in November. And he said that Rounds is legit, that after the hearing, there was an event from the UAP Disclosure Fund where he spoke that. And then he walked the room and spoke to anyone who wanted to speak with him. He seemed very sincere about the issue, and he could easily have skipped the event, but he made himself available. And I think that is very important from a politician to do because there's low confidence in politicians these days, not just in America, worldwide. And the fact that he took the time and spoke to folks about these concerns, I think that speaks highly of him. And let's just continue with this, but just let that sink in for a bit. He's talking about these things, and he said a lot more. And I am very happy that he spoke about these things, but let's just keep going with this clip.
And then at some point, based upon a commission's review of it, to determine any national security concerns, to be able to share that information at the appropriate time. It was not put in there because of any evidence that I had or that I believe Senator Schumer had that would suggest that we had a smoking gun, but rather let's have clarity.
So let's have clarity. Yeah. There's no evidence that they saw or have either him or Schumer. However, they were briefed by a lot of people who claim to have firsthand knowledge from these alleged legacy programs. And that's what made them urgently write up this legislation. And we're going to talk about the author or potential author of this legislation a little bit later, but let's be clear there.
Let's lay this thing out and make sure that the American public would know that if there was such information that existed, we were directing that it be preserved and then it be delivered for appropriate persons and for review by this select committee.
Shout out to Wow on Twitter, who posts a lot of great content there, a lot of great clips pertaining to the topic. Shout out to them. So yeah, that's one. But that was not all that Schumer talked about. He mentioned that, yeah, the UAP Disclosure Act is going to be proposed for this year again. When he was talking about it, Ross did ask him if eminent domain was still a thing, what was happening there. He asked him if there were going to be any changes. Initially, Rounds said that they were going to still try to get it as is. And he seemed to not know why the eminent domain was such a problem, which I think he's not being that truthful with that, because I'm sure he knows why people were raising concerns about that. And this is another topic that I do want to mention here because I think it's important. I think, and just so people know how writing and proposing legislation works in the US, no bill passes fully on the first try ever. It usually takes 2, 3, maybe sometimes 4 years to pass. And just keep in mind, the first time this was introduced, the full bill, the Schumer-Rounds amendment, that was in 2023. And it did not pass completely, as it always happens. Then on the next year, Rounds explained that it couldn't pass because the politics wasn't there. People couldn't get to an agreement on it. So it didn't even get to the floor. So that was a problem. Now there seems to be more openness to that. I suspect because Mike Turner is no longer around. But I still think that trying to pass it as is could be a problem. But I understand why they're trying to do it like this, because it is a whole process. The first time, some things passed. The second time, the same amendment or most parts of the same amendment need to stay in order for people to keep an eye on it and to study it more and to know what it's about. It is not going to pass completely again. I am telling you this right now. That's just the way Congress works. That's just the way amendments work. They don't pass completely on the first or second try. That is not realistic to think about and to get people's hopes up. It's just not how it works. So what can happen? What can we do? I think that what will happen is that it's not going to pass completely, as it didn't pass in 2023, but some things that are new will probably pass if it is introduced, because we still don't know if it's going to be introduced. It's going to be proposed, and if it's proposed and it gets to the floor, it's going to be voted on, and then it's probably going to pass. If it does, whatever passes is not going to be fully what they propose. Some things are going to be disputed. I would guess the eminent domain part is going to be disputed. I would guess that the panel of experts is going to be disputed. I have a problem with both, if you ask me, but I don't know. I do know that after this next try, there should be other ideas heard by the authors or author of the bill. And I think that there are other ideas out there. Just as an example, Sean Munger from the Debrief, he's a former Marine Corps intelligence analyst. He introduced in April the UAP Registration Act. And I'm going to leave links in the description to it. Although this is a really good proposal, if it does get in front of people who make the decisions, I don't think it will be looked at even, because they're very focused on passing or trying to pass whatever is proposed this year. But I think that people should keep a look out for this proposal from Sean, because it does fix a lot of the issues. And I think that he and perhaps whoever is the author of the 2023 bill that is going to be reproposed this year need to sit down and talk about whatever Sean is proposing, because I think it's interesting. I'm not going to go into specifics. I am going to leave it in the description so you guys can check it out. But it is called the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Registration Act, not the Disclosure Act. So there's a difference. And I'm just going to leave it in the description. I'm just telling you, that's not how legislation works. People who are hopeful that it passes this year, that is not realistic. I don't think it's going to pass completely. Some things are not going to pass. So, having said that, I think it's important that it is proposed and that it is reintroduced this year, because last year it wasn't. So, it is important. But just keep your expectations tempered, please. Don't think that it is going to pass as is. There's a lot of interest involved. There's a lot of different aspects to the bill that are involved that are highly disputed and highly contested. And I do understand on both sides some of the arguments, to be honest with you. But that's just my opinion, that it is not going to probably pass completely. Hopefully, some aspects of it pass, which would be ideal, I think. So let's see what else did Senator Rounds discuss. One thing that he discussed was, and I think this is the most juicy part of the whole interview, two things from the Wall Street Journal article that was likely a hit piece, but now we can now officially say that it really backfired, because now a senator is on record contradicting this article. So let's hear what he said about the article, and then let's hear what he said when he was asked about his inclusion in the Age of Disclosure documentary, specifically of what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said about these objects hovering over military and nuclear sensitive installations. But let's go with the Wall Street Journal article response from Senator Rounds.
I know the Wall Street Journal, in a two-part series, they recently tried to suggest that essentially pretty much all UFO stories are essentially a result of that disinformation. Do you buy into that? Do you think it's likely that all of this talk of UFOs is just the result of a US Air Force hazing disinformation operation?
I can't say that that would take care of all of the issues that I've seen or that I've questioned.
Booyah! Sorry, but that's more than enough to assume that the Wall Street Journal's article backfired spectacularly, I would say. Because, yeah, although it may be real, and it is more than likely true, that there was misinformation back then to cover Black programs and Black technology, there's also a bunch of cases that still to this day cannot be explained. And you have Senator Mike Rounds openly and publicly saying it right here.
But it takes care of a great deal of them. The development of our stealth systems and the development of our high-speed aircraft, particularly some of our supersonic bombers at that time that we were looking at, and the high-flying observation aircraft, the SR-71 as an example, and so forth. Those items, I think, have been identified on a number of different occasions as something that nobody else knew about because of the speed and altitude at which they were flying. And when you're bringing them in or around some classified areas, a lot of people probably had the opportunity to observe them on a very short notice or intermittently. They thought maybe there was something going on there. The other item on it, though, I think is the development of stealth technology also means the development of some very unique types of material that look out of this world. And some of those items that were recovered may very well.
Is he talking about black triangles, guys? I would say that probably he is, maybe. And that some of them may be from the government or these aerospace companies, I would say.
Have been part of the development of our stealth technology that we utilize today.
I agree with you, sir. I actually do think that the UFO excuse was used as disinformation to try and distract people from things like the stealth program. But as you do, I don't think it explains everything. The other thing about that Wall Street Journal story is it's...
So that's another one. And I am glad that Ross talked about it. Let's hear another one, because Senator Rounds was asked about his appearance and age of disclosure, specifically about the claims from Secretary of State Marco Rubio about these objects hovering over sensitive military installations and nuclear facilities. And just listen to what he says, which is, I think, the most important aspect of this whole interview, because one of the main talking points from the Wall Street Journal article was trying to take down Robert Hastings' investigations and all of the military personnel who reported on this and came forward with this when they had experiences of these objects in the missile silo sites. And I think it's very important that Senator Rounds is talking about this now. So let's take a look at what he said.
Waiting for your appearance in the Age of Disclosure film. I know you have a role in the film which is pending, and I understand you support comments made in the film by the now Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, where he raises the concern that hypothetically UFOs could pose a national security threat. And I'm just going to repeat what the then Senator Rubio said. He said, "We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours. And we don't know whose it is. Just that statement alone deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus." Surely, Senator, that comment from the Secretary of State is correct. Any kind of craft operating in our airspace over sensitive national security sites is, by definition, a national security threat.
And I don't disagree with his comment at all. What I do know is I don't know if it's ours or if it belongs to one of our adversaries, or if it's one that is neither ours nor theirs. And if it's neither ours nor theirs, I don't know whose it is. But what I know is that those are the types of things that we want to learn more about, and it clearly deserves to have more discussion. But we want to do it in a very reasonable fashion. And so we'll continue to keep our options open with regard to what it might be. But he is correct that there are items out there that we just simply can't explain. And I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm going to keep my my options open. I want to make sure that if it's something that one of our organizations in the United States actually is testing or working with, that we not disclose it. If it belongs to one of our adversaries, most certainly we want to make sure that we have all of the information we can gather on it and be prepared to defend against it. And if it's something that is neither ours nor theirs, if it belongs someplace else, then my curiosity really starts to grow at that stage of the game, and I want to be open to those possibilities as well.
Wow. To me, this was the main talking point of the whole presentation from Senator Rounds, because there's always been this silence ever since Robert Hastings came out with his book, UFOs and Nukes. And I think that's one of the most important books about UFOs in history. Because, yeah, since the 60s at least, there are reports of people from the military talking about these objects hovering over these installations. And now Senator Rounds is now making it more official by appearing here and contradicting what the Wall Street Journal reported on mistakenly. Because, yeah, it is something that is hard to talk about. It is a difficult conversation to have, but it needs to happen. And I am very, very happy that Senator Rounds is now taking this head on. I remember James Fox talking about this when he spoke to Senator Harry Reid, the late Senator Harry Reid. And he was one of the people that told him that that was one of the biggest issues that they needed to address eventually. So this is what is going to be addressed, one of the things at the Age of Disclosure film. Hopefully it comes out soon. But now that Senator Rounds is openly talking about it, I hope that more people like him come out and agree that this needs to be looked at. If there's any talking point from any of this that should convince the American population that they need to press their politicians in order to investigate this, it should be this. So if you want to call your representatives after looking at this, because it is really concerning and it's been happening for 50 years or so, you got to call them and tell them to press and to ask and to investigate, because we need to know what those things are. So yeah, Rounds confirmed that he's going to reintroduce the UAPDA. He completely contradicts the Wall Street Journal hit piece, and he specifically mentions that the use of non-human intelligence in the legislation that appeared 24 times at least does not mean that they do have a smoking gun. Neither he nor Chuck Schumer. In my opinion, it does mean that they were briefed by people who had these experiences and that they are taking it seriously. That doesn't change. So, yeah. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about everything that he talked about. What do you think about him acknowledging the UFOs and nukes connection now publicly like this? That is one of the first times that I've heard a senator say this in such a public forum. I think that's huge. And what do you think? What do you expect from the UAPDA that is going to be reintroduced? I'm telling you, I don't have high hopes for it to pass completely if it makes the floor, but hopefully some aspects of it pass, and just understand the mechanism around proposing legislation. No legislation ever passes completely on the first try, ever. That's impossible. Now it's going to be the second time if it does pass. So let's hope at least some of the positive aspects that didn't pass last time pass this time. But also some of the aspects of it that are really contentious, I think that need to be addressed amongst people who are proposing other ideas. I think that needs to happen. There needs to be a forum of people who are into this and have the attention of the legislators in order to tweak the legislation and make it more democratized. Because honestly, if you ask me, and I'm not an American, just you guys know this, but I don't feel comfortable with the US government having full control of this. I think that whether it's technology from a non-human intelligence or some new physics that was discovered that could benefit humanity, I don't think it should be under classified worlds. I don't think it should be a secret. I think it should be open to the public and democratized. And yeah, regulated. I agree there, of course. But when it comes to, for example, the eminent domain, according to the free market rules, if there's such a technology, it needs to be open source. I'm sorry, but that's just the reality of it. And I don't think that the current bill, as proposed, I don't think it covers that. And I think that should change. And I do think that, for example, Sean's proposal, I think that fixes this issue. And the panel of people, I think that is also very important, because if you introduce a panel of people who are like going through this historical documents and checking out every single claim and deciding what's good for release and what's not, I don't think that that group of people should be controlled by the government. I think that it should be independent, and I think that it should be a civilian-based group, because it's supposed to represent the people, not the government. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. If you only do that, it supports us a whole bunch. That's all you need to do. But if you want to support us in any other way, you can pick a link from downstairs. You can support us through KGRA, or you can become a member on YouTube. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated. So thank you. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Senator Mike Rounds. Always. Bye.